Eh,
Yeah, you can start the session.
Okay. Today I'm going to talk about the traditional ecological knowledge in management of environment. And in this, I'm going to give more stress on natural resource management and biodiversity conservation using traditional knowledge by various indigenous communities in India. How these communities are actively and efficiently managing their environment, their surrounding environment. So to start with, I want to make you understand about the nature of human beings, how human beings are different from other various groups of organisms. Human beings have special ability to see things, to understand things, to interpret, to observe, and adjust to their advantage. So the famous philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein said, humans do not just see, but they see us. That means animals will see certain things as it is. But human beings, they see beyond what is there. They can see what is inside what they're seeing. So whatever they are seeing, along with that, they visualize and they observe what is there inside, what is there beyond that. Another famous TV personality is Oprah Winfrey. She said, I know for sure what we dwell on is who we become. So human beings can change. They can add some values. They can, with the same comparable, same two things, they can make one thing more, less, or more, or bigger, or more important, or having more value, or that particular thing has less value. So intangible things they can see. We do not just simply look. There is a famous song by Carpenters. The name of the song is Mr. Postman. And the lady who was waiting for a letter from her boyfriend who is staying very far off place. In that song, she was asking the postman whether there is a letter written by or sent by her boyfriend to her. And she was saying or asking that postman, look and see, is there any letter for me? So that means look, it doesn't end with look only. By looking, the postman can identify that yes, he will first of all look the letter and he will see that that letter belongs to that particular lady or a person. So she was asking, look and see if there is any letter for me. So that kind of looking and observing and understanding the things is the innate quality of human beings. Human being understands the way the things are. For a simple organism, for animal, the tree will look like a tree. But tree can be like anything. Beyond tree, human beings can understand tree. It is a tree first, and then we human beings then will try to understand what is there in the tree. What is that tree? How much services that tree can give? What are the things? What are the other organisms that are dependent on that tree? Is that tree a useful one or not useful one? A forest, for example, forest may be a simple forest. Yes, everybody knows. But forest may be an abode of God. Forest can be a source of water. Forest or jungle may be a sacred place. So we see things in different perspectives. So human beings have the ability to understand the things. And another thing is that human beings, with understanding of the things, we communicate one another through the words. We have very elaborate set of words. We form it to make understandable, and through this we transfer our knowledge. Through this we communicate. Through this we can do many things. So words are very powerful. Words can change people's mind, people's perspective, people's understanding, and also people's opinion. So we human beings have that kind of things, and the knowledge are being transmitted through knowledge, through words, and knowledge as such passed on from one person to another, from one generation to another generation. So we have that kind of ability, which is unique in human beings. So I just wanted to quickly go through about the customs and traditions. Another very important aspect in human society. How they are different and how they are connected. They are linked. They have particular pattern, customs, traditions, and ultimately culture. Custom is nothing but the practices that are followed by many people in a society. And that custom, if it is transmitted for a long time to different set of people, maybe from the father to the son, and son to the another next son. So from one generation to another generation, and which is practiced in that society, becomes a tradition. And when tradition is accepted by all the community, and that tradition becomes a way of life, a way of their conduct, a way of their everyday life, and it becomes a norm for the society, then it becomes a culture. So practices that are followed by many people in a society or culture are termed as customs. Tradition in a literal meaning means to deliver, that means to transfer, to give. So when custom is transferred, it becomes a tradition. So it is a custom that is handed over by a generation to the coming generation, and one that has been passed down over successive generations. That becomes a tradition, the accepted norm, or the way of life. That means when traditions are actively in use, becomes part of the life, widespread and accepted by all the members of the community, it becomes a culture. So it becomes a way of life, especially the general customs and beliefs of that particular group of people at a particular time which is known as culture. Now, in the course of human evolution, culture has been the tool of adaptation. Now, culture changes, enabling humans to spread across the globe and occupy all possible ecological niche by the use of technology that is only an aspect of culture. So with this culture being universally accepted, being useful, something because it has been tested, it has been accepted after time tested, it becomes conducive for the society, for that surrounding environment. So it is used as a means to adapt the environment, surrounding environment. In short, culture is everything a certain group of people has amassed throughout their history. It's a way of life. In simple terms, we can say that it is a way of life. Now, in India, just imagine how many such cultures will be there. How many such traditions will be there? Because it is culture is the accepted norm for a set of populations, set of individuals belonging to a community. In a community. So in India, there are such many communities, thousands of communities. There is rich diversity in India. And this is diversity is linked to our physical features of the country. You'll find different set of communities in one physical feature. We have mountain ranges, we have sea, we have oceans, we have large river irrigated lands, streams, forest, sandy deserts, very hot deserts. So depending on such physical features, different communities reside, and these communities have their specific cultures. Not only physical features, we have numerous races, castes, creeds, religions, and languages. So we have a wide variety of communities. We call it diversity in Indian subcontinent. Yet still then, we are united as a country. We are a country, one nation, united through understanding and appreciation of these different cultures. So there are 4 types of diversity in India that is evident in India. You can classify or categorize this diversity in terms of geographical, in terms of cultural, in terms of religions, and in terms of languages. Now, if I go one by one, then it will take a lot of time. So geographical, as I have mentioned earlier, that geographical features are different. India is blessed with all kinds of geographical features. We have high mountain ranges in Himalayan, in the north. We have the great fertile plains in the central and northern part of India. We have Deccan plateaus. We have the long range, long line, coastal line, and surrounded by the great oceans and seas. We have Arabian Sea, we have the Bay of Bengal, we have the Indian Ocean. We have such half of the southern half of our country is surrounded by the oceans, water bodies. We have so many cultural variety. We have the religions. There are many religions in India. There are 4 major religions in the world: Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhism. Of course, there are other minor religions, many religions, but 4 major religions, out of which 2 religions are originated from India, that is Hindu and Buddhist. And let me tell you, out of these 4, 3 are originated in India, and another one, that means Muslim, another 2, they have come to India quite long time back. From our history, if you visit its history, they come very long time. Even if you say about Christians, Christianity came to India as early as 52 AD. That means India received Christianity before the British received. St. Thomas came to Chennai in southern India in 52 AD. So as early as 52 AD, which even the Great Britain, even the British, they have not received Christianity at that time. So if you see the religion, these 4 religions are prominently present in India. Out of these 2 are already, the 2 have been originated in India. We have so many minor religions. We have Jainism, we have other local religions. So that kind of diversity. We have languages. We have many languages as per the Constitution of India. In 8th schedule, we have 22 known languages. Modern Indian language, we say. There is no such national language, but these 22 languages are equally given respect, given precedence. We have this, of course, the official language. We have Hindi and English are there. We don't have national language as such. So apart from this, Indian language, 22 languages, we have so many languages, dialects, thousands of languages we have. Even one village has its own language. There are many dialects. So in terms of language, also India has such vast languages, rich in traditions, rich in languages, rich in religion, all kinds of diversity we have in India. And I'm going to focus on the indigenous communities. India, as we all know, since we have wide varieties of people belonging to different groups. At the same time, we have indigenous communities, which are about, this is about the world, about the world. So indigenous communities are present all over the world. India is also no exception. India has many indigenous communities. But in the world, about 300 million indigenous people are living in the world, and 150 million are living in Asia, and about 30 million of which are living in Central and South America, and the significant number of them are living in Australia, Europe, New Zealand, Africa, and Soviet Union, which consists of many nations. We are talking about nowadays Russia and Ukraine conflict. So they are part of the Soviet Union. So in India, large part of Indian subcontinent, you will have presence of indigenous communities. So this is the map of India, and the colored represent how densely they are. And this we have in different parts from north to south. We have presence of the indigenous communities, so-called, we call it tribes or tribal communities or Adivasi. So there are about 8.2% in our, I mean, 8.2% of the total population of India. So in tribal communities in India, we call it as Adivasi or tribal, which comprise 104.2 million. Which corresponds to 8.6% of the total population. And in terms of groups, they consist of 700 tribal groups in India. And these tribal groups have many linguistic. They belong to 6 linguistic groups. Andamanese, Austroasiatic, Dravidian, Indo-Aryan, Sino-Tibetan, Kra-Dai. And the major religions, Hinduism is one of them, Christianity, animistic, and many other, like local traditional knowledge, traditional language, such as Toni Bolo in Arunachal Pradesh, Sanamahi in the Manipur, and Sarnaism in the central part of India. So we have, in terms of religion, the tribal communities have many religions. In terms of languages, also they have many languages. And all these are reflected in a culture. And the culture, the diversity in culture represent or help in conservation of biodiversity, and they have various ways in which their surrounding natural resources are conserved, and they are managed and governed by these traditional communities. Now, if you look the state of biodiversity in the world, it is general that genetic resources are disappearing at unprecedented rate, because we have ever increasing populations, whether developed countries, developing countries, or underdeveloped countries. Population does not decrease. It increases, but the rate of increase may be different from one country to the another. Like third world countries may have very fast pace of population increase as compared to the developing countries, and developing countries will have faster rate of population increase than the developed countries. So the only thing is that there is difference in rate of increase, but general trend is that population increases. So in order to meet the requirements of ever increasing populations, there is lots of pressure on the biodiversity. So many or much of the biodiversity have been extinct. There are many threatened and vulnerable group of biodiversity, plants or animals in this world. More than 15 million hectares of tropical forests are lost each year. And experts estimate that as much as 8% of all plant species could disappear in the next 25 years. Now, if you compare with the rate of biodiversity loss among different groups, now the experts the reports of the working groups of the experts suggested that indigenous people are subscribed to low carbon traditional ways of life, and as such, they have contributed little to causes of biodiversity. On the contrary, they are most adversely affected by global changes due to biodiversity loss, such as global warming and climate change. Contribution-wise, the traditional communities or indigenous communities contribute very less to biodiversity loss. On the other hand, since they are depending on their surrounding environment, the effect is mostly pronounced in traditional communities. Now, why do we need traditional communities in management of environment? Why do we really take into consideration the traditional communities or indigenous communities? So indigenous communities comprise about only 4% of world population, which is about, say, 300 million. But they utilize 23% of land surfaces. So per capita land availability of traditional community is very high as compared to our formal or urban communities. And also these communities, indigenous communities, they are in control of about 80% of planet's biodiversity. 85% of the world protected area have their presence. So how significant is indigenous community in terms of biodiversity and natural resource management? Without their contribution, without their participation, it will be very difficult, because 80% of the biodiversity, they are in control. 85% of the world protected area, government invests lots of money for protection, protected areas. And in those areas, 85% of those areas, traditional communities are residing, they are present. And so their cooperation, their contribution, and their participation in management of biodiversity is crucial. Now, indigenous communities and biodiversity, how they are related. The United Nations, in recent report, 2019, reported that approximately 1 million species currently at risk of extinction. However, the report noted biodiversity is declining at a significant slower rate on lands governed by the indigenous people. In this study, they found that the biodiversity loss in those areas inhabited by indigenous people is very slow as compared to the other parts of the world. So such decline is due to their deep understanding of their surrounding environment and demonstrating their success as stewards of their natural environment. Now, why do they conserve this biodiversity? Why there is slow rate of biodiversity loss in those areas inhabited by indigenous communities? Because conservation of biodiversity amongst traditional societies have been a reason out of their animistic religious belief system. They see things. Now the first slide, if you remember, they do not see the tree as such a simple tree. They do not see the forest as a simple forest. Everything in them has a meaning. Everything in them has a reason. There is a forest. Yes, there is a forest, but it is there because of certain reason. Whether their belief is true or not, whether you by way of applying scientific knowledge, you may dismiss their belief, but they have that belief, and through that belief, they conserve. So such belief systems are fundamental aspects of people's culture, which strongly conditions their use of natural resources. So with this belief, with such kind of belief, they look at the things, they use the things, they utilize the things, they manage the thing, they govern the things. So there is a deep, in-depth belief system. So traditionally, communities have to ensure that external perturbations did not exceed natural resilience. So they are the steward, and they observe minutely that external perturbations should not exit to the natural resilience of that particular ecosystem. And that includes human activities. That includes human utilization of the natural resource. They utilize the natural resource in such a way that the resilience of that particular ecosystem should not be affected. They kept the resilience intact. The natural way in which the ecosystem can tolerate certain disturbance, certain perturbance, that they maintain. So by way of what? How do they maintain it? By way of using traditional knowledge, or very often we say traditional ecological knowledge. So what is traditional knowledge? Traditional knowledge is a set of knowledge and beliefs which has been developed, practiced, tested, selected, and accumulated for generations. And this system has historically been dynamic. Now, when I say dynamic, it is always under practice. It is always in use, very active, and which responds and adapt to changing environmental, social, economic, and political conditions to ensure that forest and associated agricultural lands continue to provide tangible and intangible benefits for present and future generations. And that this definition is given by Parota et al. In 2009. Now, how do they use traditional ecological knowledge in natural resource management? Now, natural resource is a vital part of nature's gift, which does not require any mankind action for its production or generation. But due to the constant anthropogenic activity caused by human has caused pressure on the natural resources. Indigenous people, they use their collective environmental wisdom or ecological knowledge, ecological wisdom or ethics, deeply ingrained in their culture. So through this, they can manage the things very effectively. The traditional ecology knowledge-based conservation and sustainable use and natural resources developed and preserved for the indigenous people has gained considerable ground worldwide. And it is widely acknowledged, it is widely accepted, it is widely appreciated by the tradition, by the international communities as well. In UNEP, in the Agenda 21, traditional knowledge has been appreciated. Their traditional way of monitoring, traditional way of managing the environment have been well appreciated in Agenda 21 also. So community-oriented traditional forest management practice are necessary for livelihood generation of themselves, of their life, of their offspring, of their community, of their society. So now in what way we can link with the modern or scientific knowledge and traditional knowledge? So it is, you can manifest, you can interpret in this way. And Holt in 2007 has beautifully studied this and represented in the form of a figure, in the form of a diagram. And this is from the source is from the Tass et al. 2021, in which traditional communities manage the natural resource through traditional ecological knowledge, and they can be classified as factual observation, temporal dimensions, cultural identity, cosmology, ethics and values, strategies for using local resources. So these are the traditional way of managing the natural resources. Now, if you interpret in modern language, in scientific language, then you can interpret, you can represent as environmental impact and risk assessment, resource management, identifying pattern of land uses, soil and watershed management, conservation of languages, maintaining cultural identity, guiding principle of conservation, improving human nature interaction, conservation of biresources, community forest management, promotion of craftsmanship, wildlife and pest management. So if we study scientifically, all kinds of practices that traditional communities are having correspond to very effective ways of scientific management of natural resources. So I just wanted to mention one or two slides regarding the traditional knowledge in Northeast India, where I belong. So Northeast India is a home for 150 major indigenous tribes. As you all know, Northeast India consists of 8 states, and they are densely concentrated by the tribals, by the indigenous communities. And they have different ways of conserving the nature, conserving the resources. And all these resources, they conserve it for their own use. They have the value system. They understand the things that are surrounding them. So conservation of medicinal plants, medicinal practices, sustainable utilization of natural resources. These are the cynosure of traditional ecological knowledge. So TAS in 2001 identified 12 sustainable development goals in Northeast India, such as zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on earth, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnership for the goals, which are directly linked to the traditional ecological knowledge and practices of Northeast region. So when we look at, observe it, what are the traditional knowledges that are practiced in Northeast India? You can link with such 12 sustainable goals of UNEP. So some of the approaches of natural resource management in Northeast India, we have wet rice cultivation in Apatani community in Northeast India, widely publicized, widely appreciated, widely studied, and demonstrated, and also validated scientifically. We have terrace, very effective, very efficient way of terrace cultivation. We have alder-based, Alnus nepalensis farming system, a very effective agro-ecosystem in Nagaland by tribes of Angami, Chakesang, Yumjunger, Chang, Konyak, etc. We have bamboo drip irrigation, tong system, sacred groves, bamboo cultivation and conservation, which are linked to agenda of sustainable development goals. So all these things, without understanding what is sustainable development goal, they have been already practiced. They have been already being in use by the local communities. So now coming to the conservation of biodiversity, the indigenous community protect specific sites or species as sacred objects. The linkage between biological and cultural diversity or areas of indigenous peoples' territories of high biodiversity has become good grounds for indigenous peoples' participation in biodiversity conservation. And this traditional ecological knowledge has been widely recognized in Article 8, Clause J of the United Nations CBT program. So in what way they conserve biodiversity? What are the drivers? What are the pushing force to conserve biodiversity? There are 3 key features. such as indigenous social organization that controls the access of natural resources within the community, customary norms and procedure for control, acquisition, maintenance, and transfer for natural resources, indigenous utilization technique for conserving and preserving resources. And they conserve in different ways. They use it, they conserve it. They maintain that the carrying capacity of that particular ecosystem or resilience of that particular system should not be collapsed. So that kind of wisdom they have. For example, plants conserve and worship as goddesses, where different communities consider different plants as the abode of their god or goddesses. We have the Mangifera indica, Arm, Arjun, Nimbu, Citrus medica, Bell, Neem, Tulsi, Agasti. So different gods are being assigned to have resided in this plants, in this different. So Lord Vidyadhara, Lord Brahma lives in Terminal Arjuna. Lord Brahaspati lives in Citrus medica. Lord Shiva is believed to live in Eagle Marmelos. Serpent King, Goddess Lakshmi. So many gods are assigned to have lived in different plants. So that if we believe that that God is residing in that area, how dare we can destroy it. So this is the way how the indigenous people can protect and conserve the biodiversity. Also, they conserve many things as source of food. For example, say some of these indigenous cultivars of rice, such as Padambi, Chambara, Valsana, are conserved by Kurichia, Paria, Khasi, Chati, and Karo tribes in Northeast region, and 150 wild cultivars of rice, which are conserved by Santhal, Munda, Birhor, Gond tribes of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Jharkhand, and Bihar. And these cultivars are generally superior. Now, with the scientific instruments and scientific way of testing the things, the scientists can prove, they have proved that the so-called the traditional varieties conserved by indigenous communities have far better quality as compared to our day-to-day varieties of rice. And they are being used and multiplied by rice breeders and also by institutions such as Coordinated Rice Improvement Program at Central Rice Research Institute, Cuttack, and at International Rice Research Institute, Philippines, Manila. So we have that kind of ways in which traditional communities conserve biodiversity as source of food. They also conserve wild fruits, seeds, bulbs, roots, tubers, etc. So list of some of the things, some of the plants, some of the plants as source of fruits, seeds, bulbs. We have so many long list, but I'm just simply listing some of the common fruits or common plants that are being conserved by the traditional communities such as Eagle Memelos, Amorphophallus, Penanthloidium, Acrinus, Asper, Bohinia purpurea, Bohinia valley, Dioscorea alata. So different types of. Also, they conserve plants as antidote of snake bite and scorpion sting, because traditional communities are living in the remote, far-off places, devoid from modern way of medical facilities. So they address, they solve the physical and the medical problems by themselves by way of using the plants, different types of plants and animals that are present in their places, in their surrounding. So such tribal communities, many tribal communities use such plants such as Acorus, Calamus, Pancuria, Lanzia, Moringa. We have the Penandrobes, Bombax. All these are used for snake bite and scorpion sting. Also, they use plants for setting bones fracture and in orthopedic treatments. We have different group of plants: Vanda tessella, Anandathera, sessile, cassia, sida. We have Bohemia, different types of plants that are used for such health improvement. They also use as medicinal herbs for the day-to-day treatment of their ailments. Different groups, different set of plants, they identify and they use it. They also make some kind of decoction. They have the traditional way of making the medicines by themselves, and they have the traditional way of administrating those medicines by themselves. So we have list of such plants that are used by these communities, and knowing that such prevalence is necessary for their population, they do not destroy these plants. They conserve it for future treatment. So without that plants, they do not have other alternative modern medical facilities. So in view of this, they have their own way of conserving this biodiversity. Also, plants maintained in fallow areas of shifting agriculture. In shifting agriculture, they do not completely destroy the vegetation of the agricultural fields. Many often we simply blame the cultivators, shifting cultivators, that whatever they have in their field, they destroy it, they blunder it, they set fire. But it is not so. Many plants which they consider useful in one way or the other, in different ways, they conserve it, and they ensure that such group of plants should be maintained in that agricultural field, and these have different purposes. So with their own use, they can conserve. They conserve this set of biodiversity. And sacred groves of tribals as a very effective in situ conservation of biodiversity. We have many such sacred groves in different communities, and especially in tribal communities, in tribal areas. Many of these sacred groves have been already destroyed by modern developmental activities, infrastructure expansion, urbanization. But these sacred groves are now found only in the areas where traditional communities are residing. They protect the sacred groves very effectively. So whenever or wherever you have traditional communities, you will find sacred groves. You will find not only sacred groves, sacred forests, you will find sacred trees, sacred lake, sacred pond. Such areas, such ecosystem, you will find only in the tribal or Adivasi group of people. They have their own way of, or traditional way of conservation, agro-ecosystem or agro-ecosystem related biodiversity. They know how to combine their crops. What crop will be good with what crop? You will find in all traditional communities, you will not find any mono cultivation, monocropping. You will find mixture of different crops. And these people, this group of people, they exactly know what kind of crops is suitable for what kind of crop to be combined. So combination, or in other words, in association of crops, these traditional communities, they know it. And they have maintained their native crops in such a way that they are not at all destroyed. They are improvised. The native crops are maintained, even though it is threatened or vulnerable group of plants. Without understanding the red list, they have their own conservation method, and they know what kind of crops will be sown in which season. What type of crops will be suitable for what type of season. So seasonal crops, and we're not talking about one single crop. They have varieties of crops, and these varieties of crop, they just can simply classify on the basis of the season. And also they know, they have a very good idea about the site, which crop is suitable for what kind of microclimatic site or climatic zone or microclimatic zone. So some plants are good in shade area, some plants are good in the sunny area, some plants will be good for red soil, some plants will be good, or some crops will be good in gray soil. So different types of soil, different types of microclimatic conditions, they know how to manage all these things. And also they actively keep on selecting and also very carefully introduce new crops. So that kind of practice, they have it, and through this they manage and conserve the ecosystem and biodiversity. And in terms of policy wise, also they have very good system of management, the biodiversity and natural resource management. In the village system, they have their own set of rules, which include regulation of land use from village level, certain regulation, certain practices they allow, certain practices they do not allow. So, and all these policies are framed in tune with the existing surrounding environment, surrounding biodiversity. So that kind of, so for example, selling of agriculture area, they have a specific set of rules that a particular person cannot have more than this much of land area as agricultural land. That kind of selling they have been maintaining throughout their history. They also have the well-defined set-aside areas. For example, those areas which are source of water, for example, the spring water. These sites or areas are being protected. No activity is allowed, no extraction allowed, no cultivation allowed. Such kind of well-set policy they maintain. And nowadays, with the introduction of Manrega, they are also using it effectively by way of planting of more trees, planting of their biodiversity, crops, different types of trees. So they are utilizing that as a policy matter. Regulation in terms for hunting, collection of wild forest, they have well set rules for that kind of such kind of activities. So with that, you have very effective system in traditional communities using their traditional ecological knowledge. They are maintaining from history the biodiversity are effectively managed, the natural resource management in which they are sitting with, they are staying with, they are well managed and protected. So I'll just leave you with that. It's exactly for one.